I kind of Billy go backwards with rugby. Kind of moved from the north side where I lived to the south side. Didn't want to change clubs with GA, and I always wanted to take up rugby. So I decided to take up rugby. I played a bit of sevens, would you believe, in the summer with Railway, because it fast tracked me with a skill set. And then I'd say I had about maybe 5 to 8 games club. Got invited into camp, which I said no to originally because it was my wedding anniversary. Thought that I'd never hear from this man, Tom Tierney, again, who was the Ireland coach at the time. And then the next week I get an email inviting me to DCU, and I'd say it was the most frustrating human to ever grace a international camp. And I thought, right, grand, we'll do this. And then didn't make they were playing an autumn international against England in the Stoop, which was November 2015. And I was like, grand, wasn't in that squad. And then Claire Malloy broke, world class Claire Malloy breaks her hand, and I get drafted in as a back row replacement. And I never played for Leinster. I remember seeing them for the first time that August. Hadn't got a clue what I was doing, especially not a back row. And yeah, come onto a very wet, soggy Stoop, 0-0, and was asking Mary Healy, who was the 9 at the time, where was I to go and what was I to do. So
yeah, I suppose mine was a bit of a whirlwind. It definitely wasn't your textbook.
Oh, yeah. Child prodigy.
yeah,
From the womb.
It was a bit backwards in a sense that I got my first international cap before. I still haven't gotten a club cap, and I've only 2 senior provincial caps to my name. But it's such a whirlwind. And when I got that original email, I'd been under Grigsby with under 18 sevens. So when it said embargo, confidential email, November's international squad, I rang him straight away and I said, oh, you've sent me the wrong email. Yeah. This wasn't meant for me. But yeah, no, once I got over the initial shock that I was in the team, it was just a whirlwind. And the likes of you and Sene and all those older girls were so good to take me under their wing and show me the ropes.
Sure, amazing. Sure, you were the youngest cap player, were you not, internationally?
Yeah.
At the age of?
16.
So yeah, revert to the child prodigy.
Well, I started when I was 16 too. Got into Feathered, and then my first game for Feathered down in UL, there was Munster selectors there. So as I said before, I kind of carried the ball, and I think I made a good few tackles. So I was called to trials, and I played as an outside centre my first season. Nice. Safe to say the ball did not get to the winger that many times. Really, it was my whole life, really enjoyed it. And then the next year, they're like, oh, Dorothy, I think we're gonna make you a back row. You could be a world-class back row. And I was like, nah, I think I'm a back. And I just thought, no, I'm not a back, but it's so delusional. And then they put me on the wing, and I was like, right, I'm ready to be a back row. And then was brought into sevens then when I was 18. So that was kind of a fair welcome into what actual hard work was and graft every day. And that was a tough pre-season, if not the toughest I've been through. And I think all of us who came up from underage, it was definitely like being thrown into a pond of water and being like, okay, you sink or you swim. So you learn how to swim.
Even when I got my first cap, I remember Grigsby saying, it's based on what you've shown in the underage interpros. So, it does, your underage system and your underage setup does feed into senior, and you learn a lot at that underage, so that's not to be overlooked either.
Oh yeah, it's the bread and butter.
Bread and butter, you get your basics and all of that. So I think interpros are an amazing time to uncover some really raw talent, so yeah, it's great.
But to be able to then go back to the interpros and actually see my progression, because I'd now a lot more time, I was playing with different teammates, so you're able to see the skills that you picked up, because everything was a slight bit slower, a little bit less pressurised. You could actually enjoy it a little bit more.
And gain confidence as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where I think the interpros are huge for only international players who maybe don't get enough time to build the confidence in a very high pressure environment like we know, and then to come back and able to pass on the skill set, and for the players that are coming up to meet our experience and kind of gel and bring each other on. And
say for being thrown straight into an international setup and learning as you go, some of the players who are playing AIL or provincial, they have so much knowledge and experience that you actually can't you can't just have that. You know, like there's a lot more experience to be
100%.
gained from the AIL and stuff that I would look forward to getting in the
Yeah.
future. It needs to be an accessible thing for girls to get into, and I know there's so many great people who work so hard to make it for girls, but it just needs to become the norm. I think that it's like, okay, girls are going to play rugby wherever, and I think it's becoming more and more like that. So yeah, I think it's going in the right direction, but you know, there's still a lot more to come, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with both of you. I think schools is a massive area that we can
it's
tap
so
into.
much fun. Schools
Yeah.
rugby is so much fun.
Yeah, and if every school had a females girls team, then that would feed into club and that would feed into provincial. So I think if we can tap in and get them
Yeah.
at a young age, participation will grow, performance will grow, and then it's just a continuous cycle, really.
Because there's so many talented athletes in schools. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how many girls you left behind in like Ballinasloe, like in terms who didn't go into rugby, but like I could name so many that didn't stay playing, and that may be because they were footballers or hurlers or whatever. But like they were class. Like if they had continued up along the ranks, like I'd love to see what some of them would have done. But then they've gone into county teams and whatever, you can't deny the
Yeah.
GAA.